You know that emotional pattern that keeps coming back in your life? That insecurity that always appears in relationships, that anger that explodes for similar reasons, that feeling of emptiness that won't go away. We try to understand, put a name on it, but sometimes it feels like the key piece is missing. What if we sought a diagnosis from two soul doctors with very different views? Carl Jung with his archetypes, and Buddha with his notion of emptiness. How would each one explain the origin of these emotional problems? Imagine bringing your emotional problem to a joint consultation. On one side, Jung, ready to search your unconscious for universal patterns. On the other, Buddha, ready to show you the fundamental nature of reality and your mind. The question is the same, but the answers? They promise to be quite different. Jung would look at the characters inside you. Buddha would look at the reality of those characters, or the lack thereof. Jung would probably say, your problem is connected to the archetypes that inhabit you without your awareness. What are archetypes? They're like universal plants of human experience that exist in our collective unconscious. The hero, the victim, the lover, the magician, the great mother, the shadow. We don't invent these figures. We inherit them. According to Jung, emotional problems often arise when we are unconsciously dominated by an archetype. For example, someone who lives the victim role and can't get out of it. We project an archetype onto someone else. Example, idealizing a partner as the perfect lover and then feeling frustrated. Or we fail to integrate aspects of a necessary archetype. Example, lacking integration of the inner warrior to set boundaries. Jung's solution is to bring these archetypes into consciousness, understand how they operate in us, and learn to relate to them in a more balanced and mature way. Buddha would hear the same story and perhaps point in a different direction. The fundamental issue, he would say, is not so much these specific patterns, but our belief that they and ourselves are real in a fixed and permanent way. The root of suffering lies in our ignorance about emptiness. Emptiness here does not mean that nothing exists, but that everything lacks an independent and lasting essence. Our emotions, thoughts, even our notion of I are like waves in the ocean. They arise from causes and conditions, constantly change, and have no fixed substance. The emotional problem happens because we cling to these waves. Anger, fear, the idea, I am like this, as if they were solid and eternal. We suffer because we resist impermanence and the empty nature of things. Buddha's solution is to develop the wisdom that perceives this empty nature and cultivate detachment, non-identification with these passing mental states. Okay, we have Jung talking about deep, meaningful patterns, archetypes, and Buddha talking about a fundamental reality where everything is kind of without substance, emptiness. It seems contradictory, right? How can something be a universal pattern and empty at the same time? But what if it's not a versus? What if Jung's archetypes are precisely the recurring forms our mind creates and clings to? Forms which in Buddha's final analysis are also impermanent and empty of a fixed essence. Jung would help us identify which powerful patterns trap us. Buddha would give us the perspective and tools like meditation not to be dominated by them, to release attachment to these forms. Maybe one describes the content of our mental theater, and the other the nature of the stage and actors themselves. We could think Jung offers us a deep psychological understanding of the specific reasons for our pain, linked to our personal and collective history. Buddha offers us a more radical philosophical, spiritual understanding about the nature of all experience and suffering. They are perhaps different lenses that can be used at different moments to understand our complexity. Which lens helps you see better? Thinking about your emotional challenges, which explanation makes more sense to you right now? The idea that unconscious archetypal patterns are acting, or the idea that your suffering comes from attachment to impermanent things and to a notion of self that is not so solid? Or maybe both, on different levels.
Tell us which perspective helps you understand your problems better. If you found this exploration intriguing, click like. See you next time.